ask bilingual and monolingual children to tell you, okay, look at that sentence, or you tell them this sentence, is that said in the right way or in the wrong way? Apples growed on trees. Now, maybe at the same age, preschoolers, bilingual and monolinguals are both able to tell you that that is said in the wrong way. They may not be able to tell you that, oh no, you shouldn't say growed because you have to say grew, right? They're not there yet. They don't have that kind of metalinguistic knowledge, but they can hear that there's something wrong. Now, where you see the difference between bilingual and monolingual children is when you ask them to tell you if there's anything wrong in that sentence. Apples grow on noses. Now, the grammar of that sentence is perfectly fine. What is funny is the meaning, because it doesn't correspond to any state of knowledge. But a bilingual child can separate form and meaning. So they can split them and they can make a judgment on the form. Okay, even if you don't ask them explicitly to do that. So they will tell you that that sentence is fine. A monolingual child may be more inclined to combine, to collapse form and meaning and reject that sentence, even if it's perfectly fine. And indeed, you can imagine a fantastic, context in which, indeed, apples grow out of people's noses. Now, this better implicit understanding of language actually gives bilingual children an advantage with respect to some components of literacy. So we can't say that bilingual children have a global advantage in terms of literacy. It tends to be an advantage with respect to some components of literacy, and some bilingual children tend to be more precocious readers, particularly when they're learning alphabetic languages, like indeed both Greek and English are, even if they use different alphabets. So learning to read in one language can transfer to learning to read in the other language. And again, this is a question that I get from many parents. Is there any problem if my child learns to read in, say, Spanish, knowing that they're going to school and they have to learn to read in English? And it's not a problem. In fact, it can be an advantage. So these components, I'll just mention two components of literacy. One is an early understanding of the stability of print. What does that mean? Well, children have to understand that print is a symbolic representation for concepts, okay? So words are read in the same way regardless of where they are, and they stand for the same concept regardless of where they are. So you can tell, you can do a little experiment with bilinguals and monolingual children. So you can have pictures and pieces of paper with words written on them. So you put a piece of paper that says dog under the picture of a dog, and you say, what does that word say? This says dog. Then you put a piece of paper that says horse under the picture of the horse, and you say, this says horse. You do this experiment with preschoolers, right, who are not quite there. Then you're evil and you put the word under the wrong picture, okay? So the word that says horse accidentally gets put under the picture of a dog. And you ask the children, what does that word say? And monolinguals are more likely to tell you that that word says dog, because it sits under the picture of a dog. Whereas a bilingual child knows that if it says horse before, it says horse even when it's next to the wrong referent. So this is a concept of stability of print that is an important aspect of literacy. Another important aspect of literacy is understanding that each letter in an alphabet, in an alphabetic language, stands for a sound in the spoken language. So this is the secret that all children have to acquire when they learn to read an alphabet. They have to understand that there are correspondences between printed letters and spoken sounds. Now, because bilingual children have a better awareness of sounds, they get there earlier, so they understand this system of correspondences between letters and sound, and that serves all alphabetic languages. It's just that the system of correspondences for English is different and less transparent than the system of correspondences for Italian, say, where Italian has shallow orthography, and so it's easier to read. But they have to crack this one principle, and bilingual children get there earlier, and that's why many bilingual children actually have an advantage in terms of reading. So if you do, again, a little experiment with monolinguals and bilinguals, again, preschoolers, you ask them, which is the longest word? Is it train or caterpillar? Now, train is a short word that corresponds to a very long object. Caterpillar is the other way around. It's a long word that corresponds to a tiny object. So a monolingual child at the same age will be more likely to be tricked into thinking that the longest word is train because it corresponds to the longest object. But that's not what makes a word long. What makes a word long is how many sounds it has, and so a bilingual child gives you the right answer, caterpillar, more easily than a bilingual child. Now, so these linguistic advantages that we've looked at, this is not an exhaustive list. Early awareness of sounds, words, sentences, possibly enhanced language learning abilities, earlier reading and transfer of reading skills. Now, what about a different kind of advantage, which I'm going to call awareness of the other? Again, this is a main milestone in all children. So all children are naturally egocentric. They think they're the center of the world. They think that everybody can read their mind, even when they can't. So all children have to reach this milestone, but bilingual children get there earlier. Why? Because bilingual children have to understand that not everybody shares their own linguistic competence. So the world is divided up into monolingual speakers of language A, monolingual speakers of language B, and bilingual speakers who speak both languages like themselves. So so they have to become aware of this very early on, and this actually, the experience of choosing the right language for the right person has repercussions outside language. So an experience that starts from language is extended to domains outside language. So let's do a little test, again with 3-year-olds. 3 and 4-year-olds, you tell them, this is a classic theory of mind task. If some of you know the label that goes with this kind of tasks. So you tell them, okay, here's Bugs Bunny, and Bugs Bunny has a piece of chocolate, and he puts it in the cupboard, and then he goes out of the room. While Bugs Bunny is out of the room, here's Daffy Duck, who comes in and takes Bugs Bunny's chocolate and moves it and puts it on top of the fridge. But Bugs Bunny hasn't seen this. And then Daffy Duck leaves. Now, Bugs Bunny comes back to the room. Where will Bugs Bunny look for his chocolate? Now, giving the right answer to this problem implies that the child distinguishes between what he knows because he's heard the story. So he knows that somebody came in while Bugs Bunny was out of the room. But Bugs Bunny can't possibly share that knowledge because he was supposedly out of the room. So there is a distinction between their own state of knowledge and somebody else's state of knowledge. So giving the right answer presupposes being aware of other people's points of view. And this is where you see the difference. At 3, a bilingual child gives you the right answer. A monolingual child will take quite a bit longer, until the age of 4 or over. Now, and then there is a last category of advantages that has to do with attention and what we can call executive function or executive control. So bilinguals tend to be better than monolinguals at selective attention. So paying attention to one aspect, what really matters, and not paying attention or inhibiting or disregarding other aspects that don't matter. They're also better at switching between tasks that require attention to different kinds of instruction. And this is the kind of advantage that is found also in adults who've grown up with 2 languages. And it's also found in elderly people. I'll come back to that in a minute. So at age 4, the difference between bilingual and monolingual children is quite clear. So if you give them a task that involves shapes like these, so shapes of plastic shapes maybe of a different colors, so you have blue, red, green, triangles, squares, and circles, and you tell them, okay, I want you to sort these things out by shape. So there is a big pile of these shapes, and children have to put all the triangles in one pile, all the squares in one pile, all the circles in another pile. And they do this happily for a while. Then you tell them, okay, put everything back in one pile. Now I want you to sort these things out by color. So this means putting all the red objects in one pile, all the blue objects in one pile, and all the green objects in another pile. This is where you see the difference between bilingual and monolingual children. Bilingual children are faster at adapting to the new task. Notice the difference. In the first task, they had to pay attention to shape and ignore color. In the second task, they have to reverse. They have to pay attention to color and ignore shape. So selective attention is at work, but also ignoring what they were doing before. So switching, adapting to a new task. And bilingual children have more mental flexibility. They adapt to the new task faster. Now, bilingual babies, according to recent research, have this advantage too. So this is an experiment done with 7-month-old bilingual babies, and the babies were sitting on the parents' lap. Of course, they couldn't play with shapes, but they were sitting in front of a screen, and they heard a made-up word like bidada, okay, such a, and they saw a face appearing on the left-hand side of the screen. And this went on for a while. Bidada, a face appears. Bidada, face appears. Bidada, face appears. After a while, the babies, all babies, monolingual and bilingual, started looking at the left-hand side of the screen, because babies are smart. They know, they expect that something is going to appear on the left-hand side of the screen. Then you change conditions, because you're an evil researcher, and you say bibida, for example, and the face appears on the right-hand side of the screen. So all babies initially tend to keep looking on the left, because that's where the face appeared until a second ago. That's where you see the difference. Bilingual children start looking on the right faster than monolingual babies. So they start expecting the face to appear on the right, because they put behind the previous condition is not relevant anymore. They adapt to the new one. So enhanced awareness of the other, mental benefits, selective attention, task switching, monitoring behavior. So why these advantages? It's clear that bilinguals, all bilinguals, face a problem that is irrelevant, logically irrelevant for monolinguals. So they have to select the right language. They have to avoid interference from the other language. Plenty of experiments show that in all bilinguals, whether adults or children, both languages are active. So you can't switch a language off in the morning knowing that you're not going to need it. So I'm constantly fighting with my Italian at the moment while I'm speaking English to you, so that it doesn't interfere with my English. And bilinguals have to do this all the time. They have to select the right language. They have to filter out the language that they're not using when they speak the other. So they develop